Oh boy, do we got a complicated crisis on our hands. An oil tanker attacked. Was it Iran? Well, in this story from the New York Times, who I'm not going to trust on the matter, tankers are attacked in Mideast and U.S. says video shows Iran was involved. Now the video is really crappy, but apparently, let me just read what the caption says. Video released by U.S. Central Command shows a patrol boat pulling up to the Kokuka Courageous, one of two ships attacked in the Gulf of Oman on Thursday. Personnel removed what American analysts believe was a limpet mine from the ship. A military spokesman said the patrol boat was an Islamic Revolutionary Guard vessel. I believe that may be true, confirmed by Iran. I've got a post from Press TV, which is Iran, it's all very contentious and complicated. Here are my concerns. With the Iraq War, no weapons of mass destruction, right? Gulf of Tonkin incident. Haven't researched it heavily, but my understanding is that it was a false flag attack. So there are a few confirmed instances where the U.S., flubbed some details. And I know, I'm being really light on describing what the U.S. has done. The issue is, do we now trust the U.S. government that these tankers were attacked and Iran was involved in some capacity? Here's the thing. First, I am absurdly anti-war, right? I can see all of the things that the U.S. has done throughout the past, the history of the U.S., like Iraq and Afghanistan, Vietnam, Korean War, et cetera, et cetera. Actually, the Korean War is more complicated, but there are certain things where it's like, hey, when we do these things, bad things happen and they don't work out well for us in the end. It was actually, and again, it's been a long time since I've gone over this, but there was a CIA report that said 9/11 was the result of blowback due to U.S. operations in the Middle East. So we can see how this affects us, and I understand the massive international conflict. It's not like there's a world war going on, but we really do have adversaries, and there is competition and conflict. I understand these things, right? I often cite the Qatar-Turkey pipeline, which resulted in a lot of the Syrian stuff. The issue is, will the U.S. benefit in the long run? Will the people of this country benefit by getting into a war with Iran? And I think the answer is a resounding no. Absolutely not. It's going to do all the wrong things. And I think often when we see these issues, especially with international war, it is a few companies that make the most profit off of it, and it's the interests of a select few that have no allegiance, to a certain degree, to the U.S. And what I mean by that is they store money in Panama, like we saw with the Panama Papers. We see people storing money in foreign countries, and they go wherever they want. They can buy citizenship wherever they want. So I'm concerned, to say the least. However, so one of the concerns I have in the bigger story of whether or not we were actually attacked, and I will move on to other stories we have here. One of the bigger issues is that simply because we know of some instances where there were false flags perpetrated by the U.S. or special interests doesn't mean these tankers weren't attacked, and that's the big problem. Sometimes you go to war. Sometimes it happens. I think the U.S. has gotten involved in a bunch of situations, and they should do better to avoid getting into war. But that doesn't mean you never go to war, right? So the issue is, I'm not a pacifist. I just think the U.S. gets involved in foreign war for the wrong reasons, and they screw everything up. That's why I err on the side of we shouldn't do this. More importantly, Obama sending drones to foreign countries we're not at war with, like Yemen, and blowing up children. That's something that's what I typically refer to when I say anti-war. However, if Iran is blowing up oil tankers in an effort to cripple international oil trade, then you got a problem. You can't just be like, by all means, go ahead and do whatever you want. No, then there needs to be a serious conversation. So right now, you've got a lot of libertarian types, a lot of people saying it's another false flag. I wouldn't go that far. Just, again, to stress, just because we know of some instances doesn't mean every instance will be, and we need to figure out what this is. Do I trust the New York Times? No, not after Iraq and Afghanistan. But here's the thing. So we've got a story here now from CBS. Tanker owner seems to dispute U.S. account of Gulf of Oman attack. But here's the thing. They're not saying they weren't attacked. They were saying they were attacked by something else. The Japanese owner of the Kokuka Courageous, one of two oil tankers targeted near the Strait of Hormuz, said Friday that sailors on board saw flying objects just before it was hit, suggesting the vessel wasn't damaged by mines. The account contradicts what the U.S. military said as it released a video on Friday. It said it shows Iranian forces removing an unexploded limpet mine from one of the two ships that were hit. First of all, CBS, what are you doing? That absolutely does not contradict what the military said. Something flew at the tanker and something happened just before it got hit. Okay, well, we don't know what those flying objects are. So why would we make any assumptions about who is or isn't right? It's another big problem. Right now, listen, here's all I can really confirm for you. Something happened, and some people are saying some things. It's really it. And I'm not trying to downplay like a something happened, like, because I know Ilhan Omar got a criticism for that. I'm trying to point out we are currently in a state where some tankers were damaged. You've got Iran denying it. You've got the U.S. saying it was limpet mines. You've got the guy, the owner of one of the vessels saying something flew at us. Okay, well, the U.S. might be right. What we do know is that something attacked these. That's it. So choose. Who do you believe? I think it's absolutely irresponsible to claim it's contradicting the U.S. military. The U.S. military didn't say nothing flew. They didn't say it was a mine and nothing flew at the vessels. No, they said there were mines. Okay, there could be mines and flying objects. The Japanese tanker was attacked twice Thursday, damaging the vessel and forcing all 21 crew members to evacuate. Company President Utada Katada said Friday he believes the flying objects seen by the sailors could have been bullets. He denied any possibility of mines or torpedoes because the damage was above the ship's waterline. He called... So let me walk back my other statement because upon clarification, I jumped the gun. So let me apologize for that. He denied any possibility of mines or torpedoes because the damage was above the ship's waterline. He called reports of a mine attack false. It's a good point. Katada said the crew members also spotted an Iranian naval ship nearby, but didn't specify whether that was before or after the attacks. The tanker survived the first attack, which hit near the engine room and was followed by another damaging the starboard side toward the back. I will stress, it's also possible, the U.S. military central command said the video it released shows Iranian Revolutionary Guard removing an unexploded limpet mine from one of the tankers, suggesting Tehran sought to remove evidence of its involvement from the scene. Iran denies being involved and accuses the U.S. of waging an Iranophobic campaign. So, again, I think it's important to point out that we really just don't know anything at this point, and it's likely whatever we do find out, it's going to be limited, it's going to be hard. This is why I think you need some strong evidence. Right now, what we've seen with these videos, in my opinion, not strong enough. We do apparently now see a contradictory statement from the owner of the vessel. So it's hard to know. It's a good point about being above the waterline, but I think people often make assumptions about what would or wouldn't happen based on an attack, and simply because there was a limpet mine removed, according to the U.S., doesn't mean there wasn't also an additional attack. Further, it may be that U.S. military analysts are incorrect about what was being removed, and it was still Iran that attacked. Ultimately, here's my thing, right? We absolutely need to avoid we need to avoid getting into more fake wars for whatever reason. I don't know. It's a really complicated situation, but I'd be willing to bet any war with Iran is going to result in a decades-long nonsense war like we've already seen with Iraq and Afghanistan. That's going to cost us a ton of money and be bad across the board. But what do? Right? One of the big things about the 2016 campaign was that Hillary Clinton was a war hawk, and that's why she lost a lot of support, and Trump was the one saying, no, we want peace. But Trump went and fired Tomahawk missiles at Syria, and now we're on the doorstep of war with Iran. These are bad things. It's not gonna go well. I would say this: you want to avoid war at all costs. If someone just attacked these vessels, we need to figure out who did it. Of course, you've got two sides. Maybe more than two sides, but the point I'm trying to make is the U.S. is going to say, you know what? We know we must act. Who do you side with? Do you side with the U.S., Iran? Well, here's what I'll say. I will always side with the U.S. because even though I know the U.S. has done things wrong, I really do not believe there's a cabal of anti-American elitists who want to destroy the United States. I just do not believe that's true. I believe for as bad as the Clintons were, as bad as a lot of these, individuals are, I don't think they literally want to destroy America. I think they think they're doing right by America, and I think they're not. The idea of like a mustache twirling conspiracy, bunch of people, it's just not the case. So here's the thing. When it comes to war, I believe there are special interests who will push the U.S. into doing the wrong thing. I believe there are people who can infiltrate and push private interests of their buddies, and we have to be careful of corruption. Corruption can lead to war to benefit a small few. This is why I err always on the side of opposing. No. You need the hardest of hard evidence, and Iraq should be an example to everybody as to why you should, because they didn't. They claimed they did, and the media toted along like little puppets for the war machine. And it was a mistake. It was a big mistake. I mean, Almost everybody agrees. But here's what I want to end with, okay? Because look, you guys know I don't want to say I'm a milquetoast fencer on the issue. I want to say we need evidence beyond a reasonable doubt. Here's something interesting. Press TV tweeted this. They're an Iranian state news. Facts. They say the IRGC, I believe that's the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, was the closest force near the incident site. Iran was the first to rush to the scene to save the crew members. Do you think Pentagon footage proves Washington's claim of Iran's involvement? And they posted this video. But Yashar Ali posted something interesting. Iranian State TV has conveniently removed 10 seconds of footage from the beginning of the video originally released by CENTCOM. Interesting. Why would they do that? Why wouldn't they try and put out as much information as possible? I'm going to tell you all right now. I do not like war. I think we need evidence beyond a reasonable doubt before we ever engage in any action. Even if we have evidence beyond a reasonable doubt, war isn't the immediate response. I also will say I will absolutely trust the U.S. before I trust Iran. Okay? Look, man, I'm somebody who's been on the front lines of protesting against war, when I was a teenager. I've repeatedly denounced actions that maybe even the security apparatus believes was the right thing to do in the long run. I disagree. Even if it means foreign countries might gain certain footholds economically, I think war should be beyond the last approach we take. I also want to point out, however, there's international conflict, man. It's like I'm not going to be so dumb and to wave a pacifist flag like we'll do literally nothing as bad people do bad things. We need to know what happened. Do you trust the government? I don't. Absolutely not. But I'll say this, I trust Iran less than I trust the U.S. So it's a very, very, difficult position to figure out what you should or shouldn't be doing. I don't even know what to say. It's like, what do you do? Do you cheer on the war? Do you deny it? What if the war is the right thing? You don't know what these people know. You don't know what Iran knows. You don't know what the U.S. knows. You don't know what our generals know. There's classified information. For all we know, the U.S. might have definitive proof, but it would compromise national security. So what do you do? It's a tough call. It really, really is. But I think you've got to justify it to the public. I really do. I think if the U.S. wants to, make claims that Iran did it, well, show us more than just this grainy video. I'm sorry. I don't trust Iran. I trust the U.S. way more. I still don't trust the U.S. to a great degree, but what can I say? I think if we get involved in another international conflict with Iran, it's going to be war with Russia. It's going to be war with China. It's going to escalate, and it's going to be one of the worst decisions we could possibly ever make. So you better damn well be ready for what comes after a full-on conflict with Iran. I don't know if we will see it. I don't. All I know is we're heading that direction, man. We've been heading that direction for a really long time, and it's not going to work out well for anybody. I guess the last thing I can say is, which would you prefer? China as a superpower, allied with Russia, controlling most of the global economy, but a strong U.S. national state that takes care of its own citizens and loses its position as a global superpower? Or would you prefer a U.S. globalist superpower where the U.S. is enforcing will on other countries and controls most of the flow of the global economy, but at the result of, less protections for Americans and less focus on Americans? I'm not saying that it's one or the other. I'm just saying, if we choose to be a strictly nationalist country and just say, we're not going to get involved in these international incidents anymore, it's very likely that the rule breakers, people like China, countries like China that willfully flaunt international norms and law, will gain tremendous power, and they're already headed towards becoming the dominant superpower. Good or bad? Man, I'm not the smartest person in the world. I can't really tell you. All I know is that war doesn't, it's not going to end well. Admittedly, though, if you study this stuff, there have been depending on who you ask, they'll tell you that following war, there's a great resurgence, and sometimes war is necessary. It is. I mean, war is necessary sometimes, not because we need to hurt each other, but because there are some people who want to hurt you, and they will do anything to make that happen. And so, at that point, what do? It's like it's a standoff, right? I tell people, if you're standing and staring at somebody and you're both pointing guns at each other, what do? There's no easy answer. And honestly, I don't know enough, but we'll leave it there. I wanted to address this just because I see a lot of people saying they did it, they didn't do it, I don't believe it. And I think addressing the gray areas and uncertainty is really, really important because we need to make sure we do everything within our power to have a rigorous understanding before any action is taken. Let me know what you think. I'll see you in the next segment at 4 p.m. on youtube.com/Timcast.